Rain crashed violently against the windshield as Vanessa screamed. Marcus stopped the car. Her trembling hands grabbed the dashboard while the black SUV sped dangerously through the empty highway. Thunder exploded across the sky, shaking the vehicle hard enough to make her flinch, but Marcus did not slow down. His jaw tightened while his fingers gripped the steering wheel. "I should have done this years ago," he muttered coldly. Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. 23 years of marriage. And she had never heard his voice sound so hateful. "Marcus, please, you're scaring me." He suddenly slammed the brakes so hard her body jerked forward violently. The SUV stopped beside a lonely stretch of road surrounded by forest and darkness. Rain poured like buckets from heaven. Marcus turned toward her slowly. "You embarrass me." Vanessa blinked. "What? You heard me." His eyes dragged across her face with disgust. "Look at you. You're tired all the time. You've gained weight. You look older every day. Every time I walk into a room with you, people pity me." Her lips parted painfully. "Marcus, I'm sick of pretending I still want this marriage." The words hit harder than the thunder outside. Vanessa felt her chest tighten instantly. For years she had ignored the signs. The late-night calls, the perfume on his shirts, the coldness in his voice, the way he barely touched her anymore. But somewhere deep inside, she still believed the man she built a life with would never truly destroy her. Now she realized she had been wrong. If you enjoy emotional stories filled with drama, love, revenge, and unforgettable endings, subscribe to Afro-Korean thrillers right now, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story. Vanessa's voice cracked. "You can't mean that," laughed bitterly. "Oh, I mean every word." Rain battered the windows while Vanessa fought tears. "I stood beside you when nobody believed in you. I paid you back for it," Marcus snapped. "You lived in a nice house, didn't you?" Vanessa stared at him like she no longer recognized the man sitting beside her. She remembered the nights she worked double shifts while he chased business dreams. The years she skipped buying clothes so he could invest in his company. The mornings she woke up sick but still cooked breakfast for him before work. She gave him her youth, her strength, her life. And now he looked at her like garbage. Marcus unlocked her door. "Get out." Vanessa froze. "What?" "I said get out." Rolled down her cheeks immediately. "Marcus, please, it's raining." "I don't care. I can barely breathe. Not my problem anymore." Vanessa grabbed his arm desperately. "I'm your wife." Jerked away from her touch instantly like she disgusted him. "Not anymore." Then he threw her handbag outside into the mud. Vanessa gasped. "Out before I drag you out myself." Her body shook violently as she stepped into the storm. The cold rain hit her instantly. Before she could even close the door, Marcus sped away, leaving her standing alone on the dark highway. Vanessa watched the red taillights disappear into the rain until they vanished completely. Then silence swallowed her. Only thunder answered. She wrapped her arms around herself and tried to walk, but her legs felt weak. Her breathing became uneven. Her chest hurt badly now. "God," she whispered shakily, "please help me." Cars rushed past without stopping. Nobody looked at her twice. Nobody cared. Vanessa stumbled forward before collapsing hard onto her knees in the muddy road. Rain soaked her completely. Her wedding ring glimmered weakly beneath the lightning. She stared at it through blurry tears. "After everything," her voice broke. Then darkness slowly swallowed her whole. Far down the highway, a convoy of black luxury SUVs moved silently through the storm. Inside the lead vehicle sat Kang Min-yi, one of the most feared Korean mafia bosses in Asia. Men trembled around him. Enemies disappeared because of him. Entire organizations feared saying his name too loudly. But tonight his expression remained cold and unreadable as he listened to one of his men explain business figures from Seoul. Suddenly, Min-yi lifted his eyes toward the rain-covered road ahead. "Stop the car." The driver blinked nervously. "Sir?" I said stop. All three SUVs halted instantly. One bodyguard leaned forward carefully. "Boss, this area isn't safe." Min-yi ignored him. His eyes remained fixed on something outside. Then he opened the door and stepped into the storm. Rain soaked his black coat immediately. The guards rushed after him nervously. "Sir." Min-yi walked slowly toward the roadside. Then he saw her, a black woman lying unconscious in the rain. Her body trembled weakly from cold. Mud covered her clothes. But one thing caught his attention instantly. Even unconscious, she still clutched her wedding ring tightly against her chest. Something about that shattered expression on her face disturbed him deeply. Min-yi crouched beside her silently. One bodyguard looked uneasy. She could be a setup. Minyi touched Vanessa's freezing hand, then his expression darkened. She's dying. Should we call emergency services? Minyi looked down at her for another long second. Then he did something none of his men expected. He slid one arm beneath her knees and lifted her into his own arms. Take her home. The guards exchanged shocked glances instantly. Nobody remembered the last time Kang Minyi personally carried anyone. Vanessa drifted in darkness for what felt like forever. Soft voices floated around her. She's severely exhausted, blood pressure dropping. She needs warmth immediately. Hasn't left the hallway. Then silence again. When Vanessa finally opened her eyes, she thought she was dreaming. A massive chandelier glowed softly above her. Silk curtains covered enormous windows. The bed beneath her felt softer than anything she had touched in years. For a moment she panicked. Where am I? A female doctor immediately approached. Easy, ma'am, please don't sit up too quickly. Looked around frantically. What happened? You collapsed from exhaustion and severe stress. The doctor checked her pulse gently. You were found unconscious during the storm. Vanessa's breathing became shaky again as memories returned. Marcus, the highway, the rain, her eyes filled instantly. God, the doctor's expression softened slightly. You're safe now. Vanessa swallowed hard. Who brought me here? Before the doctor could answer, the bedroom door opened quietly, and the air in the room changed immediately. A tall man entered wearing all black, sharp eyes, cold expression, powerful presence. Even without speaking, he felt dangerous. Vanessa's body tensed instantly. The doctor stepped aside respectfully. Sir. Minyi looked directly at Vanessa. For some reason, his gaze felt intense enough to strip away every lie she ever told herself. You're awake, he said calmly. Vanessa gripped the blanket nervously. Who are you? Kang Minyi. Something about his voice made her heartbeat quicken. Why am I here? You were abandoned on the highway. The bluntness of his answer crushed her instantly. Vanessa lowered her eyes in humiliation. Minyi noticed the pain on her face immediately. You needed medical attention. Vanessa tried forcing a smile. Thank you. Her voice cracked. And for some reason, that small broken sound bothered Minyi more than it should have. Days passed slowly inside the mansion. Vanessa remained nervous around everyone, especially Minyi. The servants feared him. The guards obeyed him instantly. Even the doctors spoke carefully around him. Something about him screamed danger. Yet he never treated her badly. Every morning fresh food appeared beside her bed. Her medication always arrived on time. Warm blankets were replaced before she even asked. One evening Vanessa sat quietly near the giant bedroom window watching rain fall again. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Minyi entered carrying a tray personally. Vanessa immediately stood up nervously. You didn't have to bring that yourself. He placed the tray down calmly. You barely ate today. She looked embarrassed. I'm sorry. Minyi frowned slightly. For what? Vanessa blinked. I don't know. That answer lingered heavily between them. Minyi studied her silently, years of apologizing for existing, years of shrinking herself to survive. He recognized the signs immediately. His own mother once carried that same sadness in her eyes. Vanessa slowly sat down again. You really saved my life. Yes. Why? Minyi looked toward the rain outside, then quietly answered. You looked like someone the world had stopped protecting. Vanessa felt tears burn her eyes instantly. Nobody had spoken to her gently in years, nobody. And somehow hearing kindness from a man who looked this dangerous made it even more emotional. She quickly turned away, embarrassed by her tears. But Minyi noticed anyway, and something cold inside him shifted for the very first time in a long time. Vanessa woke the next morning to the smell of warm tea and buttered toast. For a few seconds she forgot where she was. Then reality returned slowly. The enormous room, the silk curtains, the silence, and Kang Minyi. She sat up carefully, still weak, and stared at the rain sliding down the windows. Her chest no longer hurt as badly, but emotionally she felt hollow, like someone had scooped out her entire life and left nothing behind. A soft knock came at the door. One of the maids entered carrying folded clothes. Good morning, ma'am. Vanessa immediately stood. Oh no, you don't have to call me that. Maid smiled politely. Boss instructed everyone to treat you with respect. Vanessa lowered her eyes quickly. Respect. The word felt strange now. The maid carefully placed the clothes on the bed. There's breakfast downstairs whenever you're ready. She left. Vanessa touched the soft fabric nervously. The clothes looked expensive, far more expensive than anything she owned. She remembered how Marcus used to complain whenever she bought anything for herself. "You don't need more clothes," he would say while spending thousands on watches and suits. Vanessa swallowed painfully. Even now, she still couldn't understand how the man she loved for 23 years could leave her to die. Downstairs, the mansion looked even bigger in daylight. Massive marble floors stretched across the entrance hall. Tall windows filled the space with gray morning light. Security guards stood near every entrance. Vanessa instantly felt out of place. She moved carefully toward the dining room before stopping suddenly. Kang Minyi sat at the far end of the table drinking coffee while reading documents. Even sitting down, he looked intimidating. One of the guards immediately pulled out a chair for Vanessa. She became nervous instantly. "You don't have to. Sit," Minyi said calmly without looking up. Vanessa obeyed quietly, the table filled with food she hadn't eaten properly in years: fresh fruit, eggs, warm bread, soup. Her stomach tightened emotionally. Marcus used to complain whenever she cooked anything too expensive. Meanwhile, this man barely knew her, yet she lacked nothing here. Minyi finally looked at her. "You're thinner than your medical records suggest." Vanessa blinked in surprise. "You saw my records. I needed to know whether you were dying." The bluntness nearly made her laugh almost. She lowered her eyes again. "I wasn't taking care of myself." "No," Minyi said quietly. "Someone else failed to take care of you." That sentence hit harder than expected. Vanessa quickly looked away before tears formed again. She hated crying in front of people, especially strangers. Minyi watched her silently for several seconds. Then he pushed a small plate toward her. "Eat." Something about his tone made it impossible to refuse. Vanessa slowly picked up her fork. Later that afternoon, she wandered carefully through one of the mansion gardens wrapped in a warm shawl. The property looked endless. Stone walkways curved around fountains and trimmed trees while security guards patrolled silently nearby. Vanessa stopped near a pond, breathing in fresh air. For the first time in years, she felt calm. No yelling, no insults, no tension, just silence. "You should not be outside too long." She turned quickly. Minyi stood a few feet behind her. Vanessa's heart jumped slightly. "Sorry." Again, "sorry." Minyi noticed immediately. His eyes narrowed faintly. "Why do you apologize for everything?" Vanessa looked embarrassed. "I guess I'm used to it. From your husband." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Minyi's jaw tightened almost invisibly. Vanessa leaned against the railing carefully. "He used to say I made everything difficult." "Did you?" "No." Answer escaped before she could stop herself. For a moment, both of them seemed surprised. Vanessa looked down at the water quietly. "I worked 2 jobs while he built his business. I paid bills when things got hard. I raised our children mostly alone while he traveled." Her voice weakened. "I tried my best." Minyi stared at her silently. She sounded confused, like she still needed permission to admit she deserved better. That angered him more than Marcus abandoning her. "You loved someone selfish," Minyi said coldly. "That is not failure." Vanessa looked at him carefully then. There was no pity in his face, only certainty, and somehow that felt stronger. That evening, Vanessa overheard something that shattered her peace completely. She had gotten lost searching for the kitchen when voices echoed from one of the hallways. "Boss killed 3 men himself." Froze instantly. Another guard lowered his voice. "Mention that around the woman. She doesn't know who he really is." Of course she doesn't. Vanessa stepped back slowly, heart pounding. Killed fear spread through her chest immediately. She hurried away before they noticed her. Back inside her room, her hands shook badly. Who exactly had saved her? Everything suddenly made sense now. The guards. The fear. The silence whenever Minyi entered a room. Vanessa sat on the edge of the bed anxiously. A Mafia boss, dear God. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Then Minyi entered. Vanessa stood immediately, nervous energy filling the room. Minyi noticed her expression instantly. "What happened?" Vanessa hesitated, then quietly asked, "Are you dangerous?" Silence. Minyi studied her carefully before answering. Honesty startled her. Most men lied. Marcus lied constantly. But this man answered without hesitation. Vanessa swallowed nervously. "Those men downstairs said you killed people." "Yes." Fear flashed across her face before she could hide it. Minyi noticed, and strangely, disappointment touched him, not anger, disappointment. He stepped closer slowly. "I do not harm innocent people." Vanessa's breathing became uneven. "Then what exactly do you do?" Minyi stared directly into her eyes. "I protect what belongs to me." Intensity in his voice made her heart skip unexpectedly. Vanessa quickly looked away. She should have been terrified. Maybe part of her was. But another part remembered something else. Marcus had worn expensive suits too, smiled politely in public too. pretended to be respectable too, yet Marcus abandoned her in the rain without remorse. Meanwhile, this dangerous man had carried her to safety himself. The thought confused her deeply. Minyi noticed her shaking hands. "You're afraid?" Vanessa answered honestly. "A little." Her surprise, Minyi nodded calmly. "That is reasonable." Then he turned toward the door. "But you are safe here." He left. Vanessa sat down slowly, heart racing. Why did she believe him? Meanwhile, downstairs, Minyi entered his private office. One of his closest men, Jae-hoon, stood waiting. "The woman is becoming a problem." Minyi removed his coat silently. "How? You're distracted." Minyi's expression darkened immediately. Jae-hoon continued carefully. "Enemies are already asking questions." They noticed extra security around the estate. Minyi poured himself a drink. "Double the guards." Jae-hoon blinked. "Boss, she stays protected." The finality in his voice ended the conversation instantly. But after Jae-hoon left, Minyi remained still for a long moment, distracted. The word irritated him because it was true. He barely knew Vanessa. Yet somehow he found himself thinking about the sadness in her eyes, the way she apologized constantly, the way she looked shocked whenever someone treated her kindly. It disturbed him deeply, because it reminded him of his mother before she died. Back upstairs, Vanessa stood before the bathroom mirror later that night, staring at herself carefully, dark circles beneath her eyes, tired skin, gray strands hidden inside her curls. Marcus's cruel words echoed painfully inside her head. "You embarrass me." Fresh tears burned her eyes, then another memory followed unexpectedly. "You loved someone selfish. That is not failure." Minyi's voice. Vanessa slowly touched her reflection. Nobody had defended her in years, nobody, not even her own children sometimes. A quiet knock interrupted her thoughts. One of the maids entered smiling softly. "Boss asked me to bring these." Vanessa looked confused until the woman revealed several elegant shopping bags. Vanessa's eyes widened. "What is all this?" "Clothing. Skin care. Shoes." Vanessa looked horrified immediately. "Oh no, I can't accept these," boss insisted. "I don't need expensive things." The maid smiled gently. "Maybe not, but you deserve nice things too." That sentence almost broke Vanessa emotionally, because somewhere along the way she stopped believing that herself. Hours later, Vanessa lay awake, unable to sleep. Thunder echoed softly outside again. Her mind replayed everything endlessly. Marcus abandoning her, Minyi rescuing her, the dangerous world surrounding this mansion. Then another thought frightened her most of all. For the first time in years, she did not miss her husband at all. If this story is touching your heart so far, subscribe to the channel right now, like this video, and tell us in the comments, do you think Vanessa should trust Kang Minyi? The next morning, Vanessa stood nervously inside one of the mansion's private salons while two women circled around her carefully. One adjusted her hair gently. The other held up elegant dresses against her body. Vanessa looked overwhelmed. "This is too much," she whispered. The older stylist smiled warmly. "No, sweetheart. This is what care looks like." Vanessa lowered her eyes instantly. Care. She still wasn't used to that word. For years her life had revolved around surviving, not being cared for. Marcus used to complain if she spent more than $20 on herself. Yet this mansion treated her like she mattered. That alone felt dangerous to her heart. The stylist stepped back, admiring her work. "You're beautiful," almost laughed sadly. "I'm really not." The room became quiet for a second. Then the older woman walked closer and touched Vanessa's shoulder gently. "Baby, somebody has lied to you for a very long time." Those words hit deep, too deep. Vanessa quickly turned away before tears formed again. Later that afternoon, Vanessa slowly walked through the mansion hallway wearing a soft cream-colored dress the stylist chose for her. The fabric moved beautifully against her skin. Even her posture looked different now, not because of the clothes, because for the first time in years she wasn't shrinking herself. As she passed one of the large mirrors near the staircase, she stopped completely and stared. For several long seconds, Vanessa could not move. The woman in the reflection looked peaceful, still older, still soft around the body, still carrying signs of life and pain, but no longer invisible. Her eyes slowly filled with tears. She barely recognized herself without exhaustion covering her face. "You like it?" Vanessa jumped softly. Minyi stood behind her, tall, calm, unreadable as always. Vanessa wiped her eyes quickly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stand here so long." "Sorry." Minyi walked beside her until both their reflections filled the mirror together. You apologize too much, he murmured. Vanessa tried smiling faintly. Bad habit. No, he said quietly. Bad treatment. Silence after that felt strangely intimate. Vanessa's heart beat unevenly. Minyi looked at her reflection carefully. You look healthier. Vanessa swallowed hard. I feel different here. Different how? She hesitated before answering honestly. Peaceful. Something softened in Minyi's expression briefly. Very briefly. Then one of his guards rushed into the hallway. Boss. Man whispered something urgently in Korean. Vanessa immediately noticed the change in Minyi's face. Coldness returned instantly, dangerous coldness. He turned toward Vanessa calmly. Back to your room. Fear crept into her chest. That concerns you. Before she could ask more questions, Minyi walked away with the guards. Vanessa watched him disappear down the hallway while tension spread through the mansion instantly. The servants moved quicker. The guards grabbed weapons. Phones rang constantly. Something was wrong, very wrong. That evening Vanessa sat alone inside her room trying to read, but anxiety refused to leave her chest. Voices echoed downstairs. Heavy footsteps moved constantly through the mansion. Then suddenly, a loud crashing sound exploded somewhere below. Vanessa jumped. More shouting followed. Her heartbeat quickened. Before she could think better of it, she stepped into the hallway carefully. Downstairs, several guards rushed through the entrance carrying injured men. Blood stained one guard's shirt badly. Vanessa covered her mouth in shock. Then she saw Minyi. He walked through the chaos calmly, but there was blood on his knuckles, fresh blood. One injured man groaned near the staircase. Vanessa's nurse instincts immediately reacted before fear could stop her. Oh my God, she hurried toward him. Several guards instantly became tense. Ma'am, stay back. Vanessa ignored them and knelt beside the injured guard. He needs pressure here, she said quickly. Blood poured heavily from the man's arm wound. Vanessa grabbed nearby cloth immediately and pressed firmly. The injured man cried out in pain. It's okay, Vanessa whispered softly. Look at me, stay awake. Minyi watched silently from across the room. Everyone else feared him during moments like this. Yet Vanessa moved toward danger to help someone else, even trembling herself. One of the doctors finally rushed forward. We'll take him now. Vanessa slowly stepped back, hands stained with blood. Only then did she realize how close Minyi stood beside her now. She looked up nervously. He going to die? No, relief crossed her face instantly. Minyi studied her silently. You were not afraid. Vanessa looked confused. Someone was hurt. Most people would have frozen in terror seeing armed men and blood covering the floor. But Vanessa only saw pain that needed help. Minyi found that strangely beautiful. One guard approached carefully. We found out who sent them. Minyi's face darkened immediately. Vanessa felt the air change again. The guard continued carefully in Korean, but Vanessa noticed enough enemies. Attack, message, then Minyi suddenly looked toward her. Go upstairs. This time his voice carried steel beneath it. Vanessa obeyed instantly. But later that night she couldn't stop thinking about the blood, or the violence surrounding this house, or Minyi himself. Part of her feared the darkness around him. But another part kept remembering something else. He protected people fiercely. Even the guards loved him enough to risk dying for him. That kind of loyalty didn't come from cruelty alone. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. When Vanessa opened the door, she froze slightly. Minyi stood there holding a small first aid kit. Her eyes widened. You're injured. It's nothing. Vanessa already noticed cuts across his knuckles. Without thinking, she stepped aside. You should clean that. Minyi entered silently. The room suddenly felt smaller with him inside. Vanessa gestured toward the chair. Sit down. Her surprise he obeyed. Vanessa carefully opened the first aid kit while trying to steady her heartbeat. Minyi watched her quietly. You were a nurse, she nodded softly, years ago. Why did you stop? Vanessa cleaned blood from his hand carefully before answering. Marcus wanted me home more often after his business started growing. You sacrificed your career for him. Wasn't a question. Vanessa gave a small, sad smile. I sacrificed a lot. Minyi remained silent for a moment, then quietly asked, did he ever deserve it? Vanessa's hand paused. No one had ever asked her that before, not once. Her throat tightened painfully. I thought love meant giving everything. Minyi stared at her intensely. And what did he give you? Vanessa couldn't answer, because suddenly the truth felt too humiliating. Very little. She wrapped fresh bandages carefully around his hand. You should avoid using this hand tomorrow. Minyi looked down at her fingers, touching his skin gently. Something dangerous stirred low inside his chest. Not lust, something deeper, something far more unfamiliar, care. Vanessa finally looked up and realized how close they were sitting. Her breath caught slightly. Minyi's eyes remained fixed on her face, neither moved. The tension became thick enough to feel. Then suddenly, a loud explosion echoed somewhere outside the mansion. Vanessa gasped. Guards immediately shouted downstairs. Minyi stood instantly, every trace of softness vanishing from his face. Gunfire exploded outside moments later. Vanessa's heart nearly stopped. What's happening? Min Yi grabbed her shoulders firmly, carefully. Fear flashed across her face. You stay in this room no matter what happens. More gunshots echoed outside. Vanessa trembled violently now. Min Yi's voice lowered dangerously. If anyone enters besides me, do not open the door. Then he pulled a gun from beneath his jacket. Vanessa froze completely. This was real. This terrifying world surrounding him was completely real. Min Yi noticed fear fill her eyes. But instead of anger, something painful crossed his expression. Because he suddenly hated that she had to see this side of him. Outside the room, guards rushed through the hallways preparing weapons. Another explosion shook the mansion walls. Vanessa's breathing became uneven. Min Yi was the first time she called him by name. He paused at the doorway, then looked back at her. And for one brief second, the feared Mafia boss looked almost gentle. I'll come back for you. Then he disappeared into the chaos outside. Vanessa stood frozen in silence. Gunfire echoed through the mansion grounds. Men shouted downstairs. Thunder crashed outside again. And for reasons she could not explain, she found herself more afraid for Kang Minyi than for herself. Vanessa paced anxiously across the bedroom while gunfire echoed outside the mansion. Every loud sound made her jump. Her breathing stayed uneven as she stared toward the closed door. I'll come back for you. Min Yi's final words replayed endlessly in her mind. She hated how worried she felt. This man was dangerous. A mafia boss. A man surrounded by violence and enemies. So why did her chest ache with fear for him? Another explosion shook the walls violently. Vanessa gasped softly and covered her mouth. Downstairs, men shouted in Korean while footsteps thundered through the hallways. Minutes felt like hours. Then suddenly, silence. Complete silence. Vanessa stood frozen. The quiet almost frightened her more. She slowly stepped toward the door before stopping herself. No, he told her not to leave, but anxiety kept clawing at her chest. Finally, after several unbearable minutes, a knock came at the door. Vanessa rushed forward immediately. Min Yi, it's me. Flooded her so hard her knees weakened. She opened the door quickly. Min Yi stood there breathing heavily while rain soaked his black shirt completely. One side of his face carried a fresh cut near his cheekbone. Vanessa's eyes widened instantly. You're hurt. It's minor. But she barely listened. Without thinking, she grabbed his wrist and pulled him inside. The action surprised both of them. Vanessa quickly released him, embarrassed. I mean, sit down. Min Yi watched her carefully. There was genuine fear in her eyes, fear for him. That realization stirred something dangerous inside his chest again. Vanessa hurried toward the bathroom for clean towels. You're bleeding. It isn't serious. She returned anyway and stood directly in front of him. Sit. Her tone carried surprising firmness. For the first time in years, Minyi almost smiled, almost. He sat quietly while Vanessa cleaned the cut on his face with trembling hands. You should have stayed downstairs, she whispered. There were attackers on the property. That's exactly why. Minyi studied her closely. You were worried. Vanessa avoided his eyes. Any decent person would worry. No, Minyi said quietly. Most people fear me first. Vanessa's fingers paused against his skin because he sounded sincere, not arrogant, not proud, just lonely. She finally looked at him carefully. For the first time, she noticed exhaustion beneath his cold appearance, like this man carried the weight of constant war on his shoulders. You saved me, she whispered softly. Of course I worried. Something shifted heavily between them again. Vanessa quickly stepped back afterward, too close. Way too close. She cleared her throat nervously. Did they catch who attacked the mansion? Yes. Yi's face darkened instantly. It has been handled. Coldness in his voice sent chills through her. Vanessa realized then that somewhere tonight, someone probably died. The thought should have terrified her completely. Instead, she found herself conflicted. Because the same man capable of violence had also wrapped blankets around her when she shivered in her sleep. Nothing about Kang Minyi made sense anymore. The next morning, the mansion remained tense. Extra guards patrolled everywhere. Even the servants spoke quietly. Vanessa walked downstairs slowly before noticing two guards whispering nearby. She's the reason boss is distracted. If enemies think she matters to him, they'll use her. Vanessa froze instantly. Her stomach tightened painfully. The reason, because of her. Suddenly guilt crashed over her heavily. She immediately turned and hurried away before they noticed her listening. Back upstairs, she sat alone near the window trying to think clearly. Maybe staying here was selfish. Danger followed Minyi constantly. And now she was becoming another weakness enemies could target. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Minyi entered moments later carrying tea. Vanessa looked at him nervously. "We need to talk." Immediately noticed her expression. "What happened?" Vanessa stood slowly. "I heard the guards talking. They said I'm becoming a problem for you." Minyi's face remained unreadable. "They speak too much." "But they're right." "No, Min Yi, you are not the problem." Wrapped her arms around herself anxiously. "You got attacked because of me. I got attacked because weak men mistake violence for power." His calmness frustrated her slightly. "You don't understand. I don't want anyone getting hurt because of me." Minyi stepped closer slowly. "That is not your decision to carry." Vanessa looked up at him helplessly. "You barely know me. Why are you doing all this?" For several seconds he said nothing, then quietly answered, "Because someone should have done it a long time ago." Her eyes instantly filled with tears again. Always tears around this man. Vanessa turned away quickly, embarrassed. "I hate crying all the time." Minyi's voice softened slightly behind her. "You cry because you survived too much alone." That sentence shattered her completely. Vanessa covered her mouth as silent tears escaped anyway. Years of pain, neglect, humiliation. And somehow this man saw through all of it without her explaining anything. She felt his hand touch her shoulder gently, very gently. Vanessa closed her eyes instantly. Marcus hadn't touched her tenderly in years. Now this feared Mafia boss handled her like something fragile. It broke something open inside her chest. "I used to think maybe I deserved it," she whispered brokenly. Minyi's expression hardened instantly. "No, I wasn't pretty enough anymore, or exciting enough. No, he used to look at me like I disappointed him just by existing." Minyi slowly turned her toward him. For the first time, real anger burned visibly in his eyes. Not repeat his cruelty as truth. Vanessa's breath caught. The intensity in his voice shook her deeply. "You are not difficult to love." Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks, because she realized something painful. Nobody had defended her like this before. Nobody, not even herself. That afternoon, Minyi ordered the staff to prepare a private dinner outside near the garden lanterns. Vanessa looked confused when the maid helped her dress. "What's happening?" Boss requested dinner under the lights tonight. Vanessa's heart skipped unexpectedly. Dinner with him. The evening air felt cool and peaceful as Vanessa stepped carefully into the glowing garden. Soft lanterns lit the pathways beautifully. Flowers surrounded the small dining table near the fountain. And Kang Minyi stood waiting for her. For a moment Vanessa forgot how to breathe. He looked devastating tonight, black suit. Dark hair pushed back. Cold features softened slightly beneath golden lights. When his eyes landed on her, he went still. Vanessa suddenly became painfully aware of herself, the dress, her hair, her body. "You look beautiful," Minyi said quietly. Her heart nearly stopped. Marcus hadn't called her beautiful in over 10 years. Vanessa lowered her eyes quickly. "Thank you." Throughout dinner, conversation came slowly at first, then easier. Vanessa found herself laughing softly at one of Minyi's dry comments. The sound surprised both of them. Minyi stared at her carefully afterward. "Laugh differently now." Vanessa blinked. "What does that mean?" "The first day here you sounded afraid to make noise." The truth of that hurt deeply, because it was true. She had spent years trying not to annoy anyone, trying not to take up space, trying not to become another burden. Minyi poured more tea calmly. "You are quieter when you're hurting." Vanessa looked at him carefully. "You notice a lot." "Yes." Air between them changed again, dangerously soft. Vanessa quickly looked away toward the fountain. "Tell me something honestly." Minyi leaned back slightly. "Aren't you married?" One corner of his mouth almost lifted. "Because I do not trust easily." Vanessa nodded slowly. "That makes sense." He asked quietly. "Would you marry again?" The question caught her off guard completely. Vanessa stared down at her tea, then answered honestly. "I don't know if I even remember what healthy love looks like anymore." Settled heavily between them, then Minyi spoke softly. "It should feel safe." Looked up slowly. His eyes remained fixed on hers. "It should never feel like begging someone to choose you." Throat tightened painfully, because for years that was exactly what her marriage became, a quiet, desperate begging to be loved properly. And somehow this man understood that without explanation. Suddenly headlights appeared near the mansion gates. Several guards moved quickly. Minyi's expression changed instantly, cold again. One guard hurried toward him. "Boss, you need to see this." Vanessa felt tension rise immediately. Minyi stood slowly. "What happened?" The guard hesitated before answering. "We found someone at the front gate asking for Mrs. Vanessa." Vanessa frowned in confusion. Then the guard finished speaking. "It's her husband." Vanessa's entire body went cold. Her husband, here, at the mansion, the peaceful warmth from dinner vanished instantly like it had never existed. Minyi watched her carefully. "You want to see him?" Vanessa's hands trembled beneath the table. Answer escaped immediately, too quickly, because deep down she was terrified of what seeing Marcus again would do to her. The guard shifted awkwardly. "He refuses to leave." Minyi's expression darkened. "Remove him." Vanessa suddenly stood. "Wait." Both men looked at her. Her breathing became uneven. Part of her wanted to hide forever, but another part, a stronger part, was tired of being afraid. "I'll talk to him." Minyi's jaw tightened instantly. "You do not owe him conversation." "I know." "Then why?" Vanessa swallowed hard. "Because I need to see if I still feel weak around him." Honesty in her voice made the air heavy. For several seconds Minyi remained silent. Then finally, "You will not speak to him alone." Later, Vanessa walked slowly toward the front entrance while her heartbeat pounded violently. Rain still drizzled lightly outside the gates, and standing there beneath the mansion lights was Marcus. The moment he saw her, his entire face changed: shock, relief, disbelief. "Vanessa," voice cracked. Vanessa froze several feet away. For a second, old memories hit her painfully. The man she married, the father of her children, the man she once loved more than herself. But then another memory followed immediately: rain. Cold highway abandonment. Marcus hurried forward emotionally. "Oh my God, you're alive." Vanessa wrapped her arms around herself tightly. "You left me to die." Marcus flinched instantly. "It wasn't like that." Eyes widened. "Not like that. I was angry. You abandoned me during a storm." Marcus looked ashamed for exactly 2 seconds before defensiveness returned. "You act like I planned for something bad to happen." Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. That same selfishness, even now, no accountability. No remorse. Then Marcus finally noticed the mansion properly, the guards, the luxury, the atmosphere. His eyes narrowed slightly. "It's true," Vanessa frowned. "What? You're really staying with him?" The way he said him dripped with judgment. Before Vanessa could answer, Minyi appeared behind her calmly. The entire energy shifted instantly. Marcus stiffened immediately. Even without introduction, Minyi's presence alone intimidated him. The Korean Mafia boss walked slowly until he stood beside Vanessa, protective. Silent, dangerous. Marcus tried hiding his nervousness. "You're Kang Minyi." "Yes," forced an uncomfortable laugh. "Wife has caused you a lot of trouble already." Vanessa's face fell instantly. Minyi noticed, and his expression became colder. "Your wife?" Marcus cleared his throat. "Well, technically, no." Minyi's voice sliced through the air sharply. "A husband protects his wife." Marcus swallowed hard. Vanessa's chest tightened painfully, because that simple sentence carried more care than Marcus showed her in years. Marcus looked irritated now. "Look, whatever the situation is, Vanessa belongs with her family." Minyi's eyes darkened dangerously. "Belongs?" Vanessa noticed the subtle shift in nearby guards immediately. Tension exploded silently around them. Marcus finally looked directly at Vanessa again. "Come home." Vanessa almost laughed. Home? What home? The place where she cried herself to sleep every night, the place where she apologized for existing. Her voice trembled slightly. "You left me on the highway." Stepped closer desperately. "I made a mistake." "You meant every word you said." "I was frustrated." Vanessa shook her head slowly. "You were honest." That silenced him briefly. Marcus stared at her more carefully than really stared. And suddenly he noticed the changes. Her skin looked healthier, her posture stronger, her eyes brighter. Even the way she stood had changed. Confidence, not complete confidence yet, but enough to unsettle him deeply. Marcus frowned. "You look different." Vanessa answered quietly. "I feel different." Something ugly flashed across Marcus's face then. Jealousy. He looked toward Minyi. "You think this man actually cares about you?" Minyi's expression remained calm, but deadly calm. Marcus continued bitterly. "Men like him don't save women for free." Vanessa saw the insult instantly, not just toward Minyi, toward herself, as if she could only be helped for a price. Something inside her finally snapped. "You know what's funny?" she whispered. Marcus blinked. "For years you made me feel impossible to love." Her voice strengthened slowly. This man showed me more kindness in a few weeks than you showed me in years. Marcus looked genuinely shocked. Vanessa stepped back slowly toward Minyi unconsciously. And that unconscious movement broke something inside Marcus immediately, because for the first time, his wife no longer looked emotionally attached to him. Panic flashed across his face. Vanessa, baby, don't do this. Baby. Now suddenly she was baby again. Vanessa almost cried from the manipulation of it all. You only want me now because somebody else saw value in me. Grabbed her wrist suddenly. You're my wife. Before Vanessa could react, Minyi moved fast, terrifyingly fast. He ripped Marcus's hand away from her violently enough to make him stumble backward. Every guard instantly reached for weapons. Marcus's face drained of color. Minyi stepped forward slowly, very slowly. The air itself felt dangerous now. You abandoned her like trash, he said quietly. Marcus swallowed hard. You don't understand our marriage. No, Minyi interrupted coldly. You did not understand her worth. Vanessa's heartbeat pounded wildly, because nobody had ever defended her like this before. Nobody. Marcus looked shaken now, not angry anymore, afraid. He glanced toward Vanessa desperately. You're really choosing him. Vanessa looked at Marcus for a long moment, then realized something painful. She wasn't choosing Minyi over Marcus. She was choosing herself for the first time in decades. Her voice came out soft but steady. I'm choosing peace. Stared at her like she stabbed him. Then slowly his face hardened bitterly. This isn't over. Minyi's eyes became ice. It is if you value breathing. The threat landed heavily. Marcus stepped backward immediately, then finally turned and walked away into the rain. Vanessa stood frozen long after he disappeared. Her emotions crashed together violently. Pain. Relief. Sadness. Freedom. Then suddenly tears filled her eyes again. I wasted so many years, she whispered brokenly. Minyi looked at her carefully. Vanessa wiped her face shakily. I stayed too long. I kept begging somebody to love me properly. Minyi stepped closer. That is not weakness. It feels like weakness. No, he said firmly. It feels like surviving. Those words broke her completely. Vanessa burst into tears instantly, not quiet tears this time. Deep, painful sobs from years of emotional exhaustion. And before she could stop herself, she collapsed against Minyi's chest. The guards immediately looked away respectfully. Minyi held her carefully while she cried against him. One hand rested protectively against the back of her head. And for the first time in years, Vanessa allowed herself to be comforted. No criticism, no annoyance, no rejection, just warmth, just safety. Minutes later, after Vanessa calmed slightly, Minyi walked her back inside quietly. You should rest. Vanessa nodded weakly. But before entering her room, she looked back at him. Why do you care about me this much? The question lingered heavily between them. Minyi stared at her silently for several seconds, then finally answered honestly. Because every time you smile, this house feels less empty. Vanessa's breath caught instantly. The vulnerability in his voice shocked her more than any violence ever could. Minyi looked away slightly afterward, almost like he regretted revealing too much. Then he quietly added, and because hurting people recognize each other. Vanessa stood frozen long after he walked away. Her heart wouldn't calm down. That night she barely slept, not because of fear, because of Minyi, the way he protected her, the way he looked at her, the way he saw through every wound she tried hiding. No man had ever made her feel emotionally safe before, and that realization terrified her almost as much as it healed her. Meanwhile, downstairs, Minyi sat alone inside his office staring at security reports, but he wasn't reading them. His thoughts remained upstairs with Vanessa. Jae-hoon entered carefully. Boss. Minyi finally looked up. What? Jae-hoon hesitated briefly. You're becoming attached. Then Minyi answered quietly. Yes. Jae-hoon looked genuinely concerned. That makes her dangerous to keep near you. Minyi's expression hardened instantly. No, boss, she stays. Jae-hoon exhaled slowly. The enemies will notice eventually. Minyi leaned back coldly. Then they will learn fear properly. But after Jae-hoon left, Minyi remained alone with a truth he could no longer deny. Somewhere between rescuing Vanessa in the rain, he had stopped seeing her as responsibility and started seeing her as something precious. 3 weeks later, the entire city buzzed about one event. The Kang Foundation Charity Gala. Politicians, business owners, celebrities, everybody important would attend. Vanessa stood silently inside her bedroom while stylists adjusted the final details of her gown. Tonight would be the first time she appeared publicly beside Kang Minyi, and her nerves were destroying her. "You're shaking," the stylist said softly. Vanessa laughed nervously. "I haven't been to an event like this in years." The woman smiled warmly. "Well, tonight, nobody's going to forget you." Vanessa stared at herself in the mirror as the stylist stepped away, then her breath caught. The woman staring back at her looked elegant, confident, soft but powerful. A deep emerald gown hugged her beautifully while her curls framed her face perfectly. But the biggest transformation wasn't physical, it was her eyes. The sadness that once lived there no longer controlled her. A quiet knock came at the door. Then Minyi entered and stopped walking instantly. For several seconds he simply stared at her. Vanessa suddenly felt shy beneath his gaze. "What?" Minyi looked almost speechless. Dangerously handsome in his black tuxedo, he slowly walked closer. "You are breathtaking." Her heartbeat stumbled instantly, no hesitation. No forced compliment, no obligation, he meant it. Vanessa lowered her eyes with a soft, nervous laugh. "You clean up nicely, too." One corner of his mouth lifted slightly. That tiny almost smile made her chest warm unexpectedly. Minyi extended his hand toward her calmly. "Ready." Vanessa looked at his hand for one long second before placing hers inside it. The warmth of his fingers wrapped around her securely, and somehow, that simple touch felt more intimate than anything she experienced in her marriage. Outside, black luxury vehicles lined the mansion entrance while guards prepared security. As Vanessa stepped out beside Minyi, camera flashes exploded everywhere, her breath caught. "There are so many people." Minyi leaned closer slightly. "Stay beside me." Strangely, those words calmed her instantly. The gala ballroom glowed with gold lights and crystal chandeliers. Conversations filled the massive space while reporters rushed toward the entrance. Then suddenly the room shifted. Heads turned, whispers spread instantly, because Kang Minyi had entered, and beside him stood Vanessa, elegant, radiant, unforgettable. People stared openly, not just because of her beauty, but because the feared Mafia boss looked protective beside her, like nobody in the room could breathe too hard near her without consequences. Vanessa felt overwhelmed immediately. "You okay?" Minyi asked quietly. She nodded nervously. "I think so." They moved through the ballroom. Vanessa noticed something strange. People respected her automatically because they respected him. Nobody interrupted her. Nobody dismissed her. Nobody looked through her. For the first time in years she felt visible. Then suddenly, her blood ran cold. Marcus stood across the ballroom, and beside him stood the younger woman he left Vanessa for. The woman froze instantly after recognizing Vanessa. Marcus looked completely stunned, like he could not process what he was seeing. Vanessa instinctively stepped closer to Minyi. Marcus finally walked toward them slowly. His date looked uncomfortable already. "Vanessa," voice sounded hollow. Vanessa held Minyi's arm lightly. "Yes." Marcus stared at her from head to toe. Regret exploded across his face openly now, because the woman standing before him looked nothing like the broken wife he abandoned. She looked loved, and somehow that hurt him more than anything. "You look," he struggled, finishing the sentence, "beautiful, healthy, alive." Meanwhile, the younger girlfriend beside him suddenly looked insecure. Marcus couldn't stop staring at Vanessa. Minyi noticed every second of it. His expression darkened faintly. Marcus cleared his throat awkwardly. "I've been trying to contact you," Vanessa answered calmly. "I know. You blocked me." "Yes." Younger woman looked between them nervously. Marcus stepped closer. "Can we talk privately?" "No," his jaw tightened. "Vanessa, come on." Before she could answer, Minyi spoke calmly beside her. She said no, looked irritated instantly. "This is between me and my wife." Minyi's eyes turned cold. "She stopped being your wife the night you abandoned her to die." Surrounding guests became silent immediately. Several people nearby pretended not to listen while clearly listening to everything. Marcus noticed too late. Embarrassment flashed across his face. "You're making this dramatic." Almost laughed from disbelief. Dramatic. After everything he did, Marcus turned toward her desperately. "I made mistakes, okay? But we had history together." Looked at him quietly. "Yes. We did." For one brief second, Marcus looked hopeful. Then Vanessa continued softly, "And most of it hurt." That sentence hit him like a slap. The younger girlfriend shifted awkwardly again, because suddenly she realized something important. Marcus wasn't over his wife, not even close. Marcus lowered his voice. "You're really choosing this life." Vanessa blinked slowly. "This life? All this dangerous mafia nonsense?" Minyi's expression remained unreadable. But Vanessa noticed his hand tighten slightly beside her. She looked directly at Marcus. You know what's dangerous? Marcus frowned. Being with someone who destroys your spirit slowly. Vanessa's voice strengthened. Every day I spent with you, I felt smaller, stared at her speechless. You made me feel hard to love, hard to look at, hard to choose. Fresh emotion filled her eyes. The truth is, I was never hard to love. Minyi looked at her quietly then, and something deep moved behind his eyes. Vanessa continued, you were just selfish. The words landed hard. Several nearby guests exchanged shocked glances. Marcus looked humiliated now, angry too. You think this guy actually loves you? Vanessa smiled softly for the first time, not a bitter smile, a peaceful one. The certainty in her answer destroyed Marcus completely, because deep down he realized she was right. Marcus looked toward Minyi bitterly. She's only impressive now because of money and fancy dresses. Vanessa could respond. Minyi spoke quietly. No, the room felt colder instantly. She was impressive when she was dying in the rain and still holding onto loyalty for a man who betrayed her. Went silent. Minyi stepped slightly closer to Vanessa protectively. You failed to see her value. That is your tragedy, not hers. Vanessa's throat tightened painfully, because hearing someone defend her publicly after years of humiliation felt overwhelming. Marcus looked completely defeated now. And for the first time, Vanessa no longer felt emotionally controlled by him. No fear, no desperation, no need for his approval, only freedom. The younger woman touched Marcus's arm awkwardly. We should go. Stared at Vanessa one final time. But now she no longer looked like someone waiting to be chosen. She looked like someone who had finally chosen herself. And that realization broke him. After Marcus finally walked away, Vanessa released a shaky breath. Minyi leaned closer slightly. You handled that well. Vanessa laughed softly through emotional eyes. I thought I was going to faint. Of his hands moved gently against her back. You're stronger than you think. The gala continued afterward, but Vanessa barely noticed the crowd anymore, because something peaceful had settled inside her chest. Closure. Hours later, the ballroom slowly emptied while soft music echoed through the enormous space. Vanessa stood near the balcony overlooking the city lights. Cool night air brushed softly against her skin. Then Minyi stepped beside her quietly. Neither spoke for several seconds. Finally, Vanessa whispered, You changed my life. Minyi looked at her carefully. She turned toward him. You saved me. His eyes softened slightly. You saved yourself the moment you decided you deserved better. Vanessa felt tears gather again. But these tears felt different now, not broken tears, healing tears. Minyi reached into his pocket slowly. Vanessa frowned slightly. Then her breath caught. A small velvet box rested in his hand. Her heart nearly stopped. Minyi. His voice remained calm, but she noticed tension beneath it for the first time. I have faced men with guns without fear. Vanessa smiled shakily. But this scares you? Yes. Honesty made her emotional instantly. Minyi opened the box carefully. Inside rested a stunning ring. But Vanessa barely looked at it, because his eyes held all her attention. You once asked why I cared about you, he said quietly. Vanessa's throat tightened. You brought warmth back into a life that only knew violence. A tear slipped down her cheek. Minyi stepped closer. You were abandoned by someone who should have protected you. His fingers brushed her hand gently. But if you allow me, voice lowered softly, I would like to spend the rest of my life loving you correctly. Vanessa broke into tears immediately, real tears, overwhelmed tears, because after years of begging for crumbs of love, someone finally offered her devotion freely. She nodded through tears. Yes. For the first time in a very long time, Kang Minyi smiled fully, and it was beautiful. He slid the ring onto her finger carefully before pulling her into his arms. Vanessa closed her eyes against his chest peacefully, safe, chosen, loved, not because she changed who she was, but because somebody finally saw her worth from the beginning. And somewhere far behind them, the painful version of Vanessa who cried alone in the rain finally disappeared forever. If you enjoyed this emotional story, subscribe to this channel right now, like this video, share it with someone who loves emotional drama stories, and tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment between Vanessa and Kang Minyi?